was raised in a fairly strict but loving Christian household in a Bible Belt section of the States. My parents weren't unreasonable in their rules and were well-intentioned, but I broke a few along the way, like most teenagers do. The summer before I started college, I began a relationship with a slightly older guy. I knew him from high school, and he was attending the college I would soon be at. Johnny was a real catch. He was exceptionally handsome, had been on the football team, and was on a full academic scholarship. Funny, talented, and very personable, there was little to not like about him. We bonded over our teetotalism and love of pranking. The best part, he had his own apartment at the college, which was a 4-hour drive from my parents' house. I could easily sneak up there under the guise of visiting one of my other friends or spending the night at a local girlfriend's house. My parents didn't even have to know I had a boyfriend. Now, I had just turned 18 and was enjoying my rebellious streak and newfound freedom, but I still happily lived under my parents' guidance and rules for a large part. They always encouraged me to be a free thinker and to ultimately figure out my own morals and values. I ended up much like them, because they're honestly that awesome. My mom wisely encouraged me not to just sleep with anyone, and it was something I actually held to quite strongly. So while I had no qualms having sleepovers with my boyfriend, I was intent on not having sex with him. He took it pretty well and seemed to respect my decision. One week, in the middle of summer, I had 3 days off in a row at work. A drive up to see Johnny was in order, and I began my travel early in the morning. He was excited to see me, and we had a great day. Nerf gun wars, reading Stephen King, making out. We went out for dinner and returned for a night of shenanigans. Or so I thought. Upon entering his apartment, Johnny produced a box of condoms. He had tried this before, so I wasn't fazed, and told him it wasn't happening. The events that unfolded following this seemingly unimportant interaction still haunt me today. Johnny's smile disappeared, and his eyes went cold. Hauntingly cold. I was sitting at his dining room table with my back against the wall. He was standing at the other end of the table. He said, "You make me sick. I'm sick of you. You play me. All you do is play me." We were serial pranksters and sarcastic in every sense of the word. While his countenance made my skin crawl, I knew he was joking. I had known Johnny for years, after all. "I've thought about this for a long time and you're dead. I'm not doing this anymore. You make me so sick. I hate you, and you're dead." He was unnervingly calm, and his voice betrayed a slight hint of anger I'd never heard before. I noticed him clenching his fists, popping out veins tracing up his arms. For the first time in our entire relationship, I felt safe with him. He held my gaze, unblinking. His second-floor apartment was on campus. It was summer. I had seen nobody else in the building and no other cars in the parking lot. Even if I could get past him, which I couldn't. My two options were unlocking the balcony door and jumping, or racing 15 feet down the hallway to the deadbolted front door which opened inwardly and getting down a flight of stairs. Either scenario led to an empty parking lot. I would have to get to my car or run into the woods nearby. While athletic, I had no chance against him physically. I focused on him. Half of me just knew he was kidding. He had to be. He would break into laughter any second now and we would return to our beautiful day. He continued talking. I can't repeat what he said. It was too graphic and specific to our location to write out in a public forum. He detailed the sexual assault he had in store for me. If I survived, I would be strangled in the nearby woods, then carted off and dumped at a secluded spot we had explored together. He motioned to some bags he had on his counter. "That's where your body will be within an hour." I had enough. His plan was too well thought out to be unreal. I'm small, but I'm stubborn, and would fight to the death if I had to. I also have a wicked straight face when I need to. It was my turn to hold his gaze with all the ferocity I could muster. I stood up and said the first thing that came to mind. I'm still proud of the unflinching calm I presented. Inside, I was begging God not to let me die. You're really funny. I almost believed you for a second. It wouldn't have worked anyways because I was going to tell you that my dad asked me to come home tonight. He needs help in the morning with the garden for Mom's birthday because my brother hurt his back, and I told him I'd call him as soon as I was on the road within half an hour. It was a lie and not a particularly good one, but the delivery was convincing. I dangled my phone in his face and told him he could explain to my dad why I wasn't coming home tonight if he wanted me to stay. Johnny's mouth was agape as he stared at me. "I was just kidding," he mumbled, with his fists still clenched. "See ya," I chirped, pushing past him. My gamble paid off. I grabbed my purse and shuffled down the hallway. I could feel his eyes burning through me and the electric energy in the room as I internally screamed at myself to move slowly. The deadbolt disengaged. I walked out and fought every urge to run down the stairs. I was too far from my car if he chased me to beat him, and I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me scared. I walked the entire length of the car park next to the woods he told me he would murder me in. I've always had a habit of parking as far out as possible, so it was quite a walk. I knew he was watching me the entire time. I could feel his eyes following every movement. As I drove out, past his apartment, I saw his shadow in the balcony window. I waved, and he stared. I drove a few miles to the nearest Walmart. It was only 8 and the sun was just starting to set. People milled through the parking lot, blissfully unaware of what I had just gone through. I collapsed onto my steering wheel and broke down, bawling my eyes out. Then I drove the 4 hours back home. Stupidly, I didn't know how to process what happened and banished it to the recesses of my mind. I spent the next few years avoiding Johnny. The few times I thought about it, I blamed myself for being so naive. I finally told my mom 4 years after the fact and was able to process it. So a possible murderer ex-boyfriend who thankfully now lives about 10,000 miles away from me. Let's not meet again. Back in about 2000 or 2001, I was driving by myself from visiting my mom in Colorado back to Arizona. I've always been scared driving at night, scared that there is someone in my back seat that is going to get me. This might be because of too many scary movies, or because my mom's paranoia rubbed off on me. I was in the Army and drove back and forth a lot to visit her. She would get mad at me for sleeping at rest stops or gas stations, and tell me someone was going to kidnap me and kill me. But I just didn't want to be bothered with the hassle and expense of a motel most of the time. So at one time, I'm driving an empty stretch of highway late at night with no other cars around. This red truck comes up behind me, flashing his lights and honking his horn at me. I was thinking to myself that there was something wrong with my car, or maybe there was something wrong with the desk in the hatchback. Because why else would he be so insistent on me pulling over? So I pulled over and got out of my car. I was in my mid-20s and still a bit naive. As I am getting out of my car, he's directly behind me and still flashing his lights and honking his horn. I got to about the middle between the cars when it hit me. Why is he still honking at me when I'm out of my car? That's odd. Then he gets out of his truck. That's when I knew something just wasn't right. I jumped back in my car and sped off. The next exit was 45 miles or so away. He followed me the entire time. I take the first exit and go to a crowded grocery store with a laundry next to it. There was an ambulance parked at the laundromat with its lights flashing, and I was next to it. I figured that if there was an ambulance, then eventually a police officer should come. The man stayed in his truck in the grocery store parking lot, watching me the entire time. I was terrified. I did not want to get out of my car and felt like an idiot if I would have had to tell someone what happened. I waited about an hour, and he finally left. After he left, I waited a little longer before continuing my drive back to Arizona. I was paranoid and watchful for any red trucks the entire time. Fast forward about 5 or 6 years later, I'm watching Unsolved Mysteries or some similar type of crime show with my hubby at the time. My husband knew of my past because we were dating when it happened. And guess what story pops up? One about a man on that exact stretch of highway with a red truck that used those exact tactics to get a few women to pull over and murder them. To this day, I am really glad my gut told me something was wrong and to get back in my car and drive away.